Welcome back, everybody, to our conversation series on remote work. Conversation number 8. Can you believe it? In this session, we tackled the biggest perceived challenge of remote work as we dig into the productivity debate. My name is Ken Kahn, and I am the Director of Partnerships and Collaboration at Eye Technologies, where we help people with video communication. As always, I'm here with my friend and colleague, the person you really want to see and hear from.
I'm Roxanne Glauser. I'm Director of Marketing and Learning with Eye Technologies. And in this conversation, we're going to kick off. It's a debate, Ken, because 40% of remote workers believe they're more productive while working at home compared to in the office. And yet, we also have stats saying that productivity plummets on days when everyone works remotely. So, how can two things be true at once?
Yeah, which one is it? I think it depends on who you talk to, right? Yeah. I to me the thing that sticks out in those two opening points is the word anecdotal. Anecdotally. Say that 3 times fast. Yes, yeah, I feel like that starts to get into the area of perception and subjectivity, and yeah, what's the story being spun? I tend to lead towards the statistic, although we know statistics can be mangled to fit a narrative as well. What are your thoughts on that? I feel like I've heard you use that fancy word anecdotally, at least in our personal conversations, if not in the recordings.
I tend to find that one is more attached when it's the CEO commenting. They'll say, "Well, we just know. We just know that people are," and they say it with confidence and a lot of repetition, so as if to make it true. I think as we go through this conversation today, I work remotely and I'm also quite introverted. For me, I can get so much more done without all of the interruptions and all the interactions and the noise when I'm in person. I'm not a person who goes to work at the coffee shop to be around other people. When I'm working, I prefer a quiet environment and I am much more productive with that. So some environments where it was very difficult for me to do the style of work I do now were it was the like open office or even the open cubicles. That was very difficult for what I was trying to do. And I do know coming from an education background, some of the open environments and that type concept are also difficult for children in learning. So I know that's different from productivity, but that noisy environment, I don't want to be like the Grinch here, but the noise, it really is disruptive when I'm trying to think or create.
Yeah, what you call noise, I think some CEOs call collaboration. One of the comments here about the disconnect between, some people saying, hey, remote work, I can be more productive. And then some people saying, oh, no, evidence is clear. If you're not in the office, productivity's down. It is job descriptions. And what is it that you are supposed to do in your role? Um, and I think, I would say like people that are looking for a new job, right? You're looking at what's the job description, what are the responsibilities, what are the requirements, what type of education do I have? We're looking at that. I would challenge that sometimes the people on the hiring committee might not be as aware of the job description as the person in HR that wrote it and posted it. And I think sometimes that could be part of the disconnect of like people saying, hey, you're not being productive enough because the job description might not match like what I think my job description is and what my managers and supervisors think my job description is might be two different things. Or even in the case of like people that have worked at a company for a long time and it's changed over time that, there's been restructuring, departments have merged or changed. So it's like what you were initially hired to do is kind of morphed over time. and then a new supervisor comes in, and maybe they have different expectations for what you should be doing than you have for what you should be doing.
When we were having our pre-chat, I wasn't quite making the connection between the productivity and the job descriptions, but that totally makes sense to where if you think you're being productive and it's more aligned to your personal expectations, but then your manager sees what you're doing and it's like, you're not doing anything you're supposed to be doing, and you're not working off of that same set of expectations. You're 100% correct. 'Cause that goes back to communication and the internals of the company, right? Who's writing the job description? Because, sometimes it can be completely bureaucratic if HR does it, but they don't check in with the people who are actually doing the work. And we've seen that. We've talked about that many, many times. I think that's where you take that as an opening to add the perceived into our conversations, because when the core business processes are inferior, inefficient, then it doesn't matter if you're in person or if you're remote, it's not going to be good.
Yeah, and I'd also layer on top of expectations how people define things or what they mean when they say certain things. And so, like, my idea of productivity is likely different than somebody else's idea of productivity unless we've discussed and said, okay, here's the job, here are the here's the job description, here's what I expect you to accomplish, and here's what I mean when I say these things. So we have more of a clear cut idea, because yeah, like productive to me might be um, getting up early, doing some work, taking a walk, doing some Bible study, having breakfast, and somebody else might be like, okay, as long as I'm up before 10 a.m., I'm feeling pretty productive.
But if they get the
Two
work done,
completely different
but
things.
if they get their work done, let's say they do get up at 10 and they have a different preference for planning their day than you do. So then,
Right. I'm not getting into that, but I'm just saying, like, if I was like, hey, are you being productive today? In my mind, I'm thinking those types of things because that's what I would define as productive,
and that's where,
versus somebody else might be like, yeah, just getting out of bed before 10 is how I would define productive. It's like, okay, well, wait a minute. Okay. Let's get on the same page on when you say productive, I understand what you mean. And when I say productive, you understand what I mean.
which is why I think as we get later into the conversations, we should focus on the outcomes and not how you go about your day, that we can take out the judgment of, oh, did you get up early? Getting up early is better than sleeping in late. So if you take that out, then we can really get to what does productivity mean and take out the personal preferences for how you get it done. So we can move away from the performative aspect of it. That connects into, I loved the next comment so much because this has always been one of my little pet peeves. And this was from Nicholas Bloom, who is a remote work evangelist. What I suspect is if you took out all the time at work talking about the Super Bowl, politics, your weekend, etc., working from home would involve more actual working minutes than time spent in the office. That's what I was referring to earlier, the chit chat part of even to go get a cup of coffee in a literal office takes so much more time. And you want to talk about productivity and being efficient or inefficient. When it takes you 30 minutes to go get a cup of coffee because everybody stops you along the way. If you are in person, that's part of the expectation, part of the culture of it is to talk. It's that social capital. If that's part of the organization, I could see those people saying, yes, you need to be in office. But if you have other things you're trying to measure, other things you're trying to get done, and you're like, this is what we need to get done, and it's not just the chit chat, I could see that not being quite as necessary. Maybe not so much, not so much. But let's just be real about like not every single minute that you are in person in an office, you are not working every single minute you are there.
Right. And I feel like that kind of gets sometimes it's like, oh, you're remote working. Like, how much are you really working? It's like, well, how much are you really working when you're at the office too? So, I mean, yeah, it's like, let's be real about all the environments and the pros and cons of both, right? I think the thing that I just keep hammering as we go through these conversations too is it's not like one size fits all. It's not there are no absolutes, right? It's like sometimes remote work is a good thing. Sometimes it's more challenging. Sometimes being in the office is a good thing. Sometimes it's more challenging. Sometimes it depends on the type of person it is, what type of personality they have. You know, what fits for them, what fits for the tasks that they have to get done, what environments that they thrive in better than others. So it's like there are no absolutes, and that's always the disagreement I have when somebody's like, it's always this way or always that way. It's like, yeah, it might be one way or another the majority of the time, but there's always going to be exceptions, and there's, always going to be like, well, maybes.
Would you say there are absolutely no absolutes then? That's how you get back to perceived all the time because you're very open to different circumstances, different needs, different styles to where you're like, the only thing that I would say, I hear you say that all the time. I would say you could say there's absolutely no absolute.
Yeah, I don't want to say never, but never. That line of thinking, right? But yeah, I mean, there's just so many things where just think of all the different things in life where you're like, oh, this works great for this person. It only works okay for me, or it doesn't work at all for this person. So it's like, you got to take everything into consideration. That's why I go back to what we talked about a lot when we were focusing on the hybrid version, because it just seems like that's best, because sometimes it's better to be this way, sometimes it's better to be that way. And when you can take advantage of both environments, I think that's typically the optimum experience.
It gives you a larger toolkit. You think of when you are limiting it to just one, then there are some things that are going to be out of bounds to where you're like, this would be great if we could be in person for this, but we can never be in person, or this would be great to be remote, but oh, we're always in person. That I think is very limited. And organizations that can offer that and know how to deploy that skillfully, I think those will continue to be organizations that are healthy and that maintain an effective workforce.
Yeah, I would add to that: deploy, manage, support. You need all of those factors to be successful at it. It's not like a just do it and it's done. You need that support, that sustainability. All right, so I think that kind of wraps up our opening here. We'll get into next a few more specific cases for remote.